We are now at the last episode of a quite long series on Celebrity Cruise Lines Caribbean Itineraries. We're going to look at the best of the best and probably the ones you should skip. So let's go. Hey, sorry to interrupt. I know this video is going to be a bit long. I didn't know that when I recorded it, and until I started editing, I realized there's not a lot that I can really cut out of this. So I hope you watch the whole thing, but I have chapter markers in the description below if you need to jump ahead. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. Hey, welcome to This is the Cruise. I'm Clint, and this is the channel where we look at upcoming cruise itineraries and try to find out if this is the cruise for you. This is the last video in a series on Celebrity Cruise Lines 2024-2025 Caribbean cruise season. That's a mouthful. Ultimately, what I was trying to find out is, why have I never cruised Celebrity Cruise Lines before? Many friends and family have said they're the best. You gotta cruise them. We've been on Carnival, Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, MSC, Holland America, Princess. I may be missing something in there, and have yet to cruise Celebrity. So I wanted to take a look, and I wanted to put this through my methodology that I use for rating and ranking cruises to see if I could come up with something. So before we get there, would really appreciate it if you like the video, click that like button. It really helps me out. Subscribe to the channel. That's great too. And if I've helped you find an itinerary, maybe helped you make a decision or come to a conclusion, feel free to buy me a cup of coffee using that safe and secure link in the description below. Just think of it as taking me out for coffee where we talk about cruises. Or even better, you could consider becoming a member of the channel. For $1 a month, you get all of these extra bonuses. Plus, I have an announcement at the end of the video that membership will also get you. So stay tuned for that. Okay, let's go ahead and let's talk about this here. So there really are kind of three main factors that go into really booking any vacation, whether it's cruising or something else. Budget, of course. I am a big fan of being able to afford your vacations. You shouldn't go into debt to go on vacation. If you're going to, scale it back, be creative, and there are things you can do to enjoy life without the added stress of the debt that goes along with that. So budget, really important. The dates, the time that works for you and your schedule, whether you're employed or retired, have kids or don't have kids, if they're in school or not in school, all of these seasons are factors in when you can go on a cruise. So we have budget and date, time of travel, right? And then really your traveling partners. Who are you traveling with? For us, we travel almost exclusive. I mean, I always travel with my wife, always. And then we have our kids that we love to travel with. And then we get along really well with my parents, and my kids travel really well with my parents. So we love to travel with my parents. I have neighbors across the street who have become our cruising partners. They have a son that's the same age as our kids. So it really works out really, really well. So your traveling partners are also a big factor. Beyond that, then you have the duration, which is sort of impacted by dates, right? How long do you want to go on vacation for? And if we look at this through the lens of cruising, how long of a cruise can you do? Whether it's, is that determined by budget? A shorter cruise is less expensive. A longer cruise takes up more time. And do you have that much time available? There's also, of course, the line and the ship. There are styles that are at play here and factors. Do you like the energy of a party? Do you like to go out late at night and have drinks and see a late night show and go see some comedy, see some incredible performances? Do you like to have it be quiet and peaceful, sit by the pool and relax? And budget can be a factor there too. So again, you have the style, but that's still affected by the budget. Those kind of three main initial categories. Then we have, for us, what gets to be really important is the cruise region. We really, really love seeing and visiting new places. Yes, we know that cruising is just surface visiting. We're not deep diving. We're not spending a week or a month or a year in these places, but we're getting a little bit of exposure. This big world is getting a little bit smaller by being able to at least taste some of these places. And that's really has been really important for us as we've been raising our kids to take them to new places. And it's really important for me and my wife. We love to experience these new places. So the region really is a factor. And then again, of course, that's determined by budget. It is very expensive for us to get to Australia, though Australian cruises aren't that expensive. That's on the other side of the world. Europe is a little bit less expensive for us, but it's still much more expensive than, say, the Caribbean, which is the least expensive place for us to visit. But if you live in Australia, that may be one of the most expensive places for you to cruise. So obviously, the region is really a factor. And of course, your travel partners will have a say or an influence in that. When we are traveling with my parents, they will influence where we're going to go. And in some cases, they have picked the itinerary, they picked the cruise and said, hey, we're going on this. Do you guys want to come along? The same is true for our neighbors that we travel with. And you'll see that coming up here towards the end of the video, how that plays into selecting a cruise. And then, of course, we have those destinations within those regions, right? The regions are sort of affected by budget. But then also when we're looking at a Caribbean cruise, we want to go to islands we've never been to before, not just cruise the Caribbean again and cruise the Caribbean again. I've been to Cozumel so many times, and I've been to Bahamas so many times, and we've been to Puerto Rico many, many times. So there are factors at play here, right? That for those of us who really emphasize the itinerary and want to have port intensive cruises, it becomes an influencing factor, still determined by budget, available dates, and your traveling partners. Okay, so how do we choose one of these celebrity itineraries? Now, I think I have like 6 or 7 videos that covered all of the ships cruising the Caribbean by celebrity this upcoming, or this kind of cruise season that we're just entering into here. Well, obviously I can't help with the budget, and I can't help you with your available dates, and I can't even help you with who you cruise with. I sure hope you like them though, because that could make or break a cruise. But what I can help you with is this idea that what you can get out of the itinerary may be better between itinerary A and itinerary B. In one of my upcoming videos, I'm going to be releasing a much more detailed look at my scoring rubric and what my methodology is for scoring these videos and itineraries. So make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't already, so you don't miss that coming up. But we're going to use that method to figure out what are the best celebrity cruises this cruise season. And maybe if you're looking at it going, hey, I've got a number of dates available and I would like to go to this part of the Caribbean, which one is best? Which one maybe should I avoid so I don't feel like I'm overspending or not maximizing my dollar? When my vacation's done, I really want to feel like it was money well spent and we got these experiences that will last a lifetime. So we're going to do something a little bit different here. We're going to do a cruise this, not that type of approach. I'm going to start with a region, and then I'm going to say, look, here's a couple of things that maybe I would avoid. And instead of these itineraries, consider these itineraries in that same region. So we can kind of get the most out of these. And then as a bonus for each of these reasons, we'll look at why have we not yet cruised celebrity? And we'll try and get to the bottom of it. As I go along, if you can relate to any of these reasons, or if you think that there's something I'm not considering that would kind of push me over the edge and say, hey, no, look, that's great. You need to go on that cruise. And, let me know in the comments below, because I would love to hear what the reasons are and how you kind of put these together and think about this. Okay, so if you want to jump ahead to the section that you're most interested, I'm going to go ahead and put the timestamps up here on the screen. So you can just go ahead and skip to the region you're most interested in. I want this to be as helpful as possible, but you can see we're going to start with Western Caribbean, then move on to Eastern, Southern, Panama, and Central America. And then I've got a couple of interesting finds that I want to point out. And then we'll do a This is the Cruise kind of pick and wrap it up from there. First, there aren't any 3 to 5 night itineraries here. So when it comes to duration, we're going to be looking at 6 to 7 and longer itineraries. The first one that I'm going to kind of avoid here is the Key West and Cayman holiday on the Constellation. There's only one sailing. It sails out on December 27th. The reason it's actually the lowest scoring itinerary And actually, it's not quite the lowest. It's actually the second lowest itinerary that we have of all of the itineraries we could be looking at. First off, it's mostly sold out. It's a holiday cruise. Yeah, you can see it's mostly sold out. Really, there's only inside rooms. It's a 6 night. It leaves out of Tampa. And look, for 6 nights, it's $1,100 for an interior room. That's really, really expensive. And on top of that, there's only 2 stops. Leaves from Tampa, goes to Key West, and then cruises down to Grand Cayman and then back. This is a holiday cruise, right? They're thinking, okay, families are gonna pay for this, and in fact, it's sold out. Families have paid for it. Many people have paid for it for sure. It's just a disappointing itinerary, and if you're trying to figure out what to do for the holiday season and you're looking at maybe going on a cruise, I would avoid this one. It is so overpriced. I don't think you're going to get a last minute deal based on how much, based on availability. But this one does get a Cleanse Cruisability score of 10.6. And like I mentioned, that is the second lowest score on offer, and it is Western Caribbean. I would probably also avoid this 7 night Key West in Mexico on the Constellation as well. This one leaves on March 30th. It's kind of a late spring break. This one leaves from Tampa, goes to Key West, then Cozumel and Costa Maya. Well, this one has a reasonable price. So why not this one? Well, there's only 3 stops for a 7 night cruise, and I like 4 stops on a 7 night cruise to maximize the number of stops that we're getting. Leaving from Tampa, I think, is fine. Visiting Key West is great. Costa Maya, there's some nice historical things you can do there. And Cozumel, there's a good amount of activities in Cozumel. If you've never been, it's great. If you've been, it kind of starts to run out after a while. This one gets a Cleanse Cruisability score of only 11.91, which is not great. Okay, so we do have another holiday type of cruise. It's around the holidays. You'll be done before Christmas. But this one here, it's the 7 night Belize, Honduras, and Mexico on the Celebrity Equinox. There's only one sailing for this one. It leaves from Port Canaveral, kind of the Orlando area, and then visits Costa Maya, Belize, Roatan, and Cozumel. This is again a 7 night. And what's interesting about this one, we have 4 stops, and it's leaving from the other side of Florida. So it has further to go than having left from Tampa. So what I'm not understanding here is why couldn't we have left from Tampa, go to Key West, and then boom, Cozumel, Costa Maya, Roatan, and hightailed it back, or put Key West at the end if that makes the travel a little bit easier. I don't know. I actually like this itinerary. I have cruised similar itineraries to this, although we left from Fort Lauderdale. This one is on a little bit newer ship than the Constellation itineraries we just looked at. The Equinox, it's about 10 years newer, though the refurbishment cycles may be a little bit different. So I wouldn't read too much into that. This ship will be a little bit bigger. It's also a couple $100s cheaper, and part of the reason for that, and it's not sold out, which is a key factor as well. And one of those reasons it's not sold out is because these dates are a little bit more difficult. It is highly likely that if you have kids, they're still in school or wrapping up. If you have college age kids, they may be finished already. So this may be a viable option. One of the reasons I like this itinerary, A, you're on a little bit bigger ship, B, it is before the really heavy cruise season in that kind of winter break. It's just on the cusp of it, so you'll have less kind of young kid crowds, which might make for a little bit nicer sailing. We've traveled with our young kids many times, and hopefully they were not bothering anybody but their kids. So, we do all, as parents, we do the best we can. This one gets a Cleanse Cruisability score of 19.11. It's a higher score than the next one we're going to look at because the ship is a little bit newer, scores a little higher, as well as it's a little bit more of a rare itinerary. However, the Constellation is doing this same itinerary, and it's from Tampa. So there we go, right? We get down to Cozumel, Costa Maya, Belize City, and Roatan. So there you go. Constellation is doing this itinerary. It's actually doing it on January 26th, 2025, as well as March 9th, 2025. From a cost factor, you just have to weigh that in. March 9th is a little bit early for spring break, and January 26th is obviously not during the holiday break season, which may be to your advantage. And Constellation has her fans. just based on the comments, people seem to love her. They're talking about how much they love the Connie. So that's great. And here we have a decent Western Caribbean itinerary that is significantly better than the previous ones we just looked at. This is a no-brainer. This one gets a Cleanse Cruisability score of 17.45. Isn't quite as good as the one that's on the Equinox, but it's still pretty solid. So I gotta say that one's okay. I would do this one, so why haven't I done this one? Well, because it's a seasonal date issue for me. You saw how expensive they were during holiday breaks, and up until this week, my kids have lived at home. And now they're both off to college, and we have a little bit more flexibility. So maybe this could be an option. But if we're traveling with our kids, it wouldn't be an option, so the dates don't work. And when we are able to travel with our kids, the price doesn't work. When our kids were younger and they cost less because they're younger and you're kind of putting them in the rooms and sharing, we were going on ships that were more geared towards kids, like Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and the like. So far, that's the reason. I'm probably not going to book a Western Caribbean cruise at that premium price. There's so many options available. The competition is too stiff for that. When we're just kind of looking at the itinerary and what you get out of it, I know Celebrity service is great and the ships are really nice. So let's move on to the Eastern Caribbean. Some of these, like the 5 nights, are by default going to score lower because they have less cruising to build the score up. I'm not really going to worry too much about those. Let's look at the 6-night ones here and kind of say that we're going to be gone for a week rather than a long weekend. The first one that I want to draw attention to is the March 16th, originally called Bimini, Labadee, and Puerto Plata on the Eclipse. There's only one sailing for this one. It is now called an Eastern Caribbean cruise. And yep, Eastern Caribbean, you can see inside $815 at time of recording. It visits Bimini, Puerto Plata, and Nassau. Yeah, it was originally visiting Bimini, Labadee, Haiti, and Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic. Well, with the unrest in Haiti, Celebrity Royal Caribbean have had to stop visiting their kind of private peninsula that they have in Haiti, which is beautiful. It's absolutely stunning, and the people are wonderful there. I'm really sad that we're not able to go there, so they've had to start finding alternative locations to visit. And this one, they chose Nassau, which effectively means it's a Bahama cruise. You have 2 stops in the Bahamas and 1 stop in the Dominican Republic, and that's the only Eastern Caribbean stop. First off, I can't recommend this because they just named it wrong. If they had called it a Bahama cruise, then it would be more accurate. But second, Nassau's not a better swap than Labadee. There are better options. I'm sure schedule was a factor here. Doesn't change the fact that I can't recommend it. And this one gets a Cleanse Cruisability score of 15.77. There is one more that I would probably avoid, and that's the Key West, Jamaica, and Grand Cayman on the Equinox. This one leaves on March 8th. It's not bad, but again, there are just better options out here. It leaves from Orlando, so it takes a little while to get down and around. I mean, so you visit Key West, which is a really relaxing kind of first stop. You get off, walk around, check out the history, maybe, do some shopping. I like Key West. It's a very chill destination for a cruise stop. From there, you're heading over to Jamaica, which is less chill, does have some safety issues. So you always have to kind of be aware of what you're doing, book something through the ship, or if you know for sure you have a reputable provider. My wife and I took our lives in our hands and booked on our own, and we booked a whitewater rafting excursion and got picked up and had a wonderful time, and the people were friendly and good, and we had great guides. We had a great time, but we were young, and at the time Jamaica wasn't kind of on a travel with caution list. From Jamaica, we're going to head over to Grand Cayman, which is great. I love Grand Cayman. It was on our itinerary for our honeymoon when we went cruising on our honeymoon, so it has fond special memories, and we've been there a couple of times. This one gets a Cleanse Cruisability score of 15.65, which is low. I would really like to see another stop out of this, especially for a 7-night. We know we can do 4 stops out of Orlando. We know we can do 4 stops out of Tampa. We know we can do, so on a 7-night, I'd like to see 4 stops here. Okay, but if we do want to cruise the Eastern Caribbean, what should we cruise? We do have some interesting Eastern Caribbean cruises that may be worth cruising on, but it just seems like Celebrity doesn't want to do 4 stops on their 7-night itineraries. Celebrity Ascent and Celebrity Beyond both leave from Fort Lauderdale and are doing itineraries that visit Puerto Plata, St. Thomas, and St. Martin. These get a cleanse cruisability score of 18.43. They're the same itinerary on essentially the same ship. Same class of ship. They look really nice. You're only getting 3 stops when you really should be getting 4, but it's just how Celebrity seems to be doing it. If you want to go on Celebrity Eclipse, then you'll be leaving from Fort Lauderdale. It's a little bit smaller ship than their Edge class ships. It does visit Puerto Plata, San Juan, and St. Martin, and scores almost tied at 18.21 for a cleanse cruisability score. It's not bad. Again, it's just not enough stops. They do have some 8-night itineraries, and they're not bad. Here's an 8-night itinerary that's on Celebrity Eclipse. It leaves from Fort Lauderdale, visits Puerto Plata, St. Thomas, and St. Martin. You can see it originally visited Labadee, Haiti, but they've swapped that out again for Nassau. This isn't bad if you have the time, again, the days to do it. This one happens to depart again around the holiday season. So, out of curiosity, we were just looking at a Western Caribbean cruise. This one is roughly the same price, a little bit newer ship, going to more stops. And I posit that the Eastern Caribbean itineraries are a little bit nicer, and in some cases, a lot a bit nicer than the Western Caribbean itineraries, depending on what you're into. If you're really into like Mayan culture and history and kind of getting into the Central America landscape and culture, obviously you want to do Western Caribbean. If you want more of the island vibe where you get, like volcanic islands and that kind of look, you start to look in the Eastern Caribbean itineraries. And this one here, as an alternative to the 7-night Belize, Honduras, and Mexico on Equinox, this one here on Celebrity Eclipse is, I think, a little bit better option. And it scores a little bit better with a cleanse cruisability score of 21.48 versus 19.11. Finally, we do have a 9-night here that I want to point out really quick. This one leaves on November 16th, and I believe there's also a sailing on February 8th, 2025. So you have a couple of options here pre-Thanksgiving holidays here in the US and kind of into the new year next year. This one leaves again from Fort Lauderdale. It visits Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic, St. Thomas, St. Martin, Antigua, and then again, instead of Labadee, Haiti, it actually goes to Grand Turk. I want to point this one out because this one gets a cleanse cruisability score of 25.24. They've replaced Labadee, Haiti with Grand Turk. There's another sailing of what was originally going to be this exact same itinerary when it went to Labadee. This one leaves January 11th, goes to Puerto Plata, St. Thomas, St. Martin, Antigua, and then instead of Labadee, Haiti, it actually goes to Nassau. This one gets a cleanse cruisability score of 24.86, which is a point less, which is in the rating system, but significant dip just based on that one island swap. So between the two, if you have a November 16th of this year or February 8th of next year available versus January 11th, take the one that goes to Grand Turk. It's a better itinerary. So why have we not done the Eastern Caribbean cruises on Celebrity? Again, budget. And 100%, we've done these cruises with our friends. And at the time, our kids were younger and we were really watching cost. So not only did we have our budget to manage, we also had our neighbors they were managing their budget, and we had to find that sweet spot to where we were getting as much out of these as we could. So far we're looking at budget, time and schedule, number of stops. So far, let's take a look at some Southern Caribbean itineraries and see if we have any options there. So I have a bit of a hot take when it comes to Southern Caribbean cruises and cruising to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. So that way you can kind of see where I'm coming from here. We've cruised Southern Caribbean cruises a couple of times. The most recent one was with our neighbors, and it was over the holidays. It had to be affordable. We wanted a lot of stops. It had to be, during school break. We left from Fort Lauderdale, cruised to Grand Turk. Then we made our way down to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. From there, we came up and stopped in at Amber Cove in Dominican Republic, which was beautiful and nice. And then from there, we went to Half Moon Cay, which is Holland America's private island, has gorgeous, stunning beaches that we really love. So ABC, Amber Cove, Grand Turk, and Half Moon Cay. That's 6 stops on a 10-day itinerary. So when we're looking at what other cruise lines are doing, we know what can be done. The question is, are they going to do it? My hot take when it comes to cruising to ABCs is that anything going to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao that doesn't visit all 3 and another stop, I'm not interested in. Look, you're going all the way down to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. That's basically to South America. And if you're not going to visit Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, all 3, I'd recommend trying to find a different itinerary. Celebrity Reflection from Fort Lauderdale is an 8-day. It visits Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, sails from Fort Lauderdale and cruises down to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, and then cruises back. That's all it does. It actually does this itinerary 10 times in and around its 3-day itineraries and kind of, weekend getaways that it's doing like Bahama cruises as well. This one only gets a cleansed cruisability score of 16.29. They absolutely, I believe, could get another stop in there. And at least it goes all the way down and visits all 3 at a minimum. However, Celebrity Reflection is doing an Aruba, Curacao, and Bahamas, which is NASA. And let me tell you, NASA is not a replacement for Bonaire. Bonaire is so nice. Is some of the best snorkeling ever in Klein Bonaire. I highly, highly recommend it. It's such a bummer to have an AC with kind of a B sort of island. This one's only on March 29th. It's how the schedule works, and it's not a great score at 15.42. There are straight up Western Caribbean itineraries that score better than this. This one's really disappointing. If you want to cruise their new ships, they do have some going to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. The Celebrity Ascent goes down. It's a 9-night. It visits all 3 and goes to Grand Cayman. They do have a couple of ships doing this. The Eclipse is doing it, but this is on the new ship. This one gets a cleansed cruisability score of 20.38. And this is pretty much as good as you're going to get from Celebrity when it comes to visiting the ABC Islands. However, there is one exception to that. And in my opinion, it is the only acceptable ABC itinerary that Celebrity is doing all season. So stay tuned. I promise I'm going to show it. So Southern Caribbean cruises technically do include the ABC Islands. Those are almost their own sort of area, but really they're part of Southern Caribbean. There are much better Southern Caribbean cruises out there that score much higher. Let me start with my 3rd favorite. It's on Celebrity Summit. It actually leaves from San Juan. It cruises down to St. Martin, Antigua, Dominica, St. Lucia, Barbados, and cruises back to San Juan. So it's a round trip to San Juan. San Juan is an accessible destination for those of us in the United States here. It's just a short flight from Florida, and there are affordable options and ways to get there. So it's not as remote as it may sound or as it once was. This one gets a cleansed cruisability score of 24.96, and I actually really like this itinerary. This is one of the best ones. This is my 3rd favorite of the Southern Caribbean itineraries. My 2nd favorite is a 10-night. It's called the Ultimate Southern Caribbean. It's on Celebrity Beyond, which is one of their new ships. That's pretty great. Again, we're down 1 stop. It could do 1 more stop, but this one does visit at St. Martin, Dominica, Grenada, Barbados, and Antigua. All those stops are banger stops. I love all of those. It's fantastic. This one gets a cleansed cruisability score of 25.39. Now we're talking. This is starting to look pretty good here. My favorite, though, is this 8-night Fort Lauderdale to San Juan cruise on Celebrity Summit. It's their oldest ship that they're sailing. It was built in the year 2000 or 2001, right around there. That's the downside here. The upside is that you don't go to Labadee. You actually go to Grand Turk. And then you go to Antigua, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, and San Juan, and you end in San Juan. So if you want to spend more time in San Juan, you can. You're going to get to Fort Lauderdale, depart from Fort Lauderdale, and fly back home from San Juan. This is very doable. It's 8 nights, so it's basically a week with an extra day, but you've got a lot of great stops, 5 ports, 2 sea days. That is a great ratio of port to sea days, way better than what Celebrity typically does, and I love it. So I'm really, really happy about this one, and this one gets a Clint's Cruisability score of 28.11, is really quite nice. This one is the second highest rated itinerary, which I'll get to that one in just a moment. I've got another kind of surprise quasi hot take on that one too. So why not so far? Well, budget, right? We went on our first Southern Caribbean cruise and we saved and saved and we splurged. Again, we didn't go into any debt, but we were still on a pretty tight budget, and we were able, for us, it was our first time being able to cruise a premium cruise line, and we were able to get onto a Princess cruise. And we were pretty young at the time, and we were just, this is amazing. We thought we'd arrived. At the time, for us, it was what we could afford, and the itinerary was kind of similar to these Southern Caribbean itineraries. So I want to quickly take a look at the Panama region cruises that Celebrity is doing. This will just take a minute. They kind of have 2 itineraries here, one of which they call the Ultimate Caribbean and the Americas. This is on Celebrity Constellation. It leaves November 30th, so just kind of in between the holidays there, from Tampa, goes to Grand Cayman, Cartagena, Colombia, Colón, Panama, Puerto Limón, Costa Rica, Cozumel, then back up to Tampa. This is deceptive though, because you cruise to Panama, but you don't actually cruise the Panama Canal on this itinerary. Not that I've been able to see. When you get to Colón, Cristobal there may be Panama Canal excursions you can take where you get the history and can experience some things there. But I'm very hesitant to recommend this one because I don't believe that it actually goes into the Panama Canal, and it may be really disappointing. We are going to Panama, but we're not cruising the Panama Canal. That's an experience in of itself, one that I have yet to do. This one gets a Clint's Cruisability score of 24.28. It's not a bad itinerary. It's just, if you're going to go, why not do the Panama Canal? However, there is an 11 night on Celebrity Beyond, which is one of the new ships. And this one cruises from Fort Lauderdale to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, then goes over to Colón, Panama, then cruises the Panama Canal, actually goes into the Panama Canal, then goes to Cartagena, and then heads back to Fort Lauderdale. Remember when I said there's a better ABC cruise coming up? This is it. This one gets a Clint's Cruisability score of 23.84 and is really intriguing. You have really, really nice stops, plus you get a Panama Canal cruise experience. In this, obviously, it does not go through the whole canal. That's for repositioning cruises from like Florida to California and vice versa. But here, at least you get to go through some of the canal into the lake, turn around and come back out. I looked into this. It looks like Celebrity Beyond and the Edge class ships are small enough to go through the old locks. However, they're kind of right there on the edge, pardon the pun. They may be a little bit too big, so just be aware of that. And I also don't think you can go out onto the bow of the ship, which is something that like Holland America does when you are cruising through the locks and their ships are smaller. So you have more of an enrichment experience on some other cruise lines, which is why we haven't cruised the Panama Canal yet. Well, that's why I say we haven't cruised Panama Canal. My wife says we're too young to do a Panama Canal cruise, and she might be right. I want to believe she's right, but I think we're getting close. So we just think the enrichment is probably better on something like Holland America, where they're more focused on enrichment activities as it relates to the destination, and the ships are a little bit smaller, so we know we're going to be in the smaller lock, which is the lock you really want to go through when you're cruising Panama Canal. So that's why we haven't done one of these yet. Okay. Some other interesting itineraries. Well, I told you I was going to tell you about the highest rated itinerary. This is the Southern Caribbean Holiday cruise. It's on Celebrity Eclipse. It leaves December 22nd. This one gets a Clint's Cruisability score of 28.5. The reason I can't really recommend this one, even though it's the highest scoring one, it's mostly sold out. You can get inside rooms or verandas. The ocean views are sold out. Concierge class is sold out. but an inside room is $2,300 a person, which is insanely expensive. For an 11 night, that's expensive. It's just flat out expensive. That's more than what we paid for our 14-day Iceland cruise this year. It's more than what we paid for our 14-day Norway cruise last year. That's crazy. So I just can't. I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do. I can't bring myself to recommend it. And it's not on an Edge class ship, so there is that factor too. So if it's just something to be aware of. It's also going to be packed full of people because they're going to be bringing their families on this, and that's fine. We've done a number of holiday cruises. We did a New Year's cruise one year, and we did a Christmas cruise one year, and they're wonderful experiences with your family, but you are going to have crowds. So you just need to be aware of that, as well as paying a lot of money for those itineraries. And there was another itinerary that I found that I just want to point out that I thought was just fascinating. It's not for me, but it is the New Orleans and the Caribbean on Constellation on March 1st. You actually have a sea day that takes you over to New Orleans. Then you have an overnight New Orleans, which puts you right downtown New Orleans on your ship, right in the middle of Mardi Gras. It's such a great itinerary for Mardi Gras fans who recognize that going to New Orleans to celebrate is expensive already. So why not do it on a cruise ship where it's a bit of a more controlled experience? Your hotel is there, your transportation's there, you're going to leave without having to try and get to the airport and get on a plane with all the other people. It's clever. If you're into Mardi Gras, it's certainly a consideration. It leaves out of Tampa on March 1st on the Constellation. I thought that was just fun. I like those. The other itineraries I didn't bring up are the short ones that are on Celebrity Reflection. These, they've got 3-4 night itineraries all the way up to 6. And we talked about the ABC itineraries that they're doing down in Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. They all they all pretty much have 3 stops depending on how you package them, except for one that just goes out to Coco Key and back on a 3-day. I don't recommend that one. I can even tell you when that one leaves. It's like the lowest scoring we've got, November 1st. Maybe avoid that one. This one only gets a cleansed cruisability score of 10.31 and is the lowest scoring itinerary of the season. But a lot of these will do things like cruise to Key West and Bimini and back, or cruise to Key West and Nassau and back, or cruise to Bimini and Nassau and back to Fort Lauderdale, or cruise to Bimini and Coco Key and back, or Nassau and Coco Key and back. So basically, what you have are 3 Bahama islands, Nassau, Bimini, and the private island Coco Key, as well as Key West. I think the combination where you can get Coco Key and Key West on the same sailing is the ideal island combination if you have that time and budget available. There are a number of sailings for this one. This one gets a cleansed cruisability score of 13.27. And why have we not done any of these? Well, honestly, they're too short. We've never done a 3-day. The shortest itinerary we've done is a 5-day, and it's because it's what we had available as well as the budget. But that does lead me to a scenario. This year is my wife and I's 25th anniversary. For our honeymoon, we went on a 5-day Western Caribbean cruise on Carnival. For our 5-year anniversary, we went on a 7-night Eastern Caribbean cruise on Royal Caribbean. For our 15-year anniversary, we didn't go on a cruise. I bought her a new engagement ring because I proposed when I was 19 years old and had no money, and I was just grateful she said yes with the barely diamond that I was able to get her on her engagement ring. So I got her a little bit nicer engagement ring. Budget matters, right? For our 20-year anniversary, we had been saving now essentially for a big trip for quite a while, and we went on a 25-day Mediterranean cruise. It was technically 2 cruises back to back, a 13 and a 12-day, visited different parts of the Mediterranean on those itineraries. And it was, for us, it felt like a cruise of a lifetime. For our 25th wedding anniversary, that's this year, we did go on a 14-day Iceland cruise. That was really, really nice. And then while we were on that cruise, and while I was in the middle of filming this series, had it kind of planned out, knew what I was going to talk about, our neighbors that we cruise with, they shot us a text, and we're in Iceland. He says, hey, we're thinking about going on a cruise for their 25th anniversary. Would you guys like to join us? So that would be our second cruise this season. And they were looking at either an Alaska cruise or a Caribbean cruise. And we looked at the itineraries and they both looked fine. They looked good to us. They were in our budget. And we thought, yeah, we could do either one of these. This is your cruise celebrating your anniversary. So how about you guys pick? And they came back and they picked a celebrity cruise. So we are going on one of the cruises that I mentioned in this video. And after we did the math, that left us with 22 days of cruising this year. And it's our 25th anniversary. So I was talking to my wife and said, what if we did a 3-day cruise just to get to 25 days? Then we'll have cruised 25 days for our 25th anniversary over a few months, right? So we looked at the dates. We considered all the cruise lines that are within that are doing 3-day cruises. MSC is an interesting one for us. We've cruised MSC before, but I really want to go to their private island because I really like what they're doing with their marine preserve. And I'm excited to see it. And my son, we just dropped him off to college a couple days ago for his freshman year, and he's studying marine biology. It's an exciting place for us to go. So we thought maybe MSC. And then we also looked at some of the celebrity 3 days on Reflection. And there was one that just fit our schedule a little bit better and was still in our budget. A little bit more than MSC, as could be understood, but still in our budget. So we booked it. So over the coming weeks, we will be cruising on Celebrity for the first time. And then over the coming months, we will be cruising on Celebrity for the second time. Basically our back-to-back cruises. And I won't be able to say why I haven't cruised Celebrity anymore. But hopefully this video was helpful in kind of looking at where are some of Celebrity's deficits in how they put their itineraries together, and why when we look at them as regular cruisers who have regular jobs just like you, who aren't retired, we have to work, and we have had kids in school and still have kids now in college, we got to fit all of that in, and they're all factors. And so maximizing the itinerary really, really matters to us. And that kind of dollar per port is at play. So if you want to find out which celebrity cruises we're actually on, I don't like to share where we're going publicly on the internet, but for my members, I do post. So if you join the channel for only $1 a month, you'll be able to follow along and see where we're at, find out what ship we're cruising on, where we're going. And, I hope you say hi if you see us on the ship. The other thing that you'll get that I am going to launch when we get back from our next 3-day cruise is my brand new app. What I was using today was my proof of concept to kind of get me through, but we turned a corner and we are going to go live with it. And you will get access to my application if you join and become a member, where all of my data is there, all of my spreadsheets are there, everything is there for you to see how it's rated, how things are put together, and you can explore. So that's only $1 a month. I encourage you to join, and we'll see you when we get back. So with that, stay happy, stay healthy, stay cruising.